Right, so we are back on the bag today with Sonubaits cameras, and I'm going to go a bit tippy, but I'm also going to go around covering something I've pretty much not done before. I mean, I've been waffling a lot over the last few months about the micro wafters that we've done, that have definitely for me changed my little fish method, feeder, pellet feeder, whatever, feeder fishing, when I can use a little wafter on the hook, a nice durable bait. What I've never really covered though is using the bigger ones on the hook. I mean, it's something that's probably a lot more common than the little fish style of method feeder fishing, is that go into venues and fishing for big carp. Do you know what I mean? It's probably the most popular method on the planet for catching big carp, definitely in this country, is fishing a method feeder, pellet feeder, whatever else, for big fish. And say wafters, sinking boilies, whatever else, are definitely the go-to bait on 99% of them situations. And what I want to do is pretty much explain my thinking, talk about something that's definitely kicked my bum a little bit in recent times after having a day with Mr. Speed, but the thinking behind using wafters, boilies properly when you're fishing for big fish, that say just when they need to be used in the right way, when you need your bait to be working in the right way, because those fish are really, really, really clever. And I'm going to break it down. We'll break it down in two ways, pretty much, sinkers and wafters. I mean, really, really simple. I've spoken about it lots and lots of times before. The go-to for me is, I'm going to say still my favourite way of fishing is keeping my bait over the pile. And to make that easier for myself and allow me to use nearly whatever hook I want, I mean, as in size, I don't have to go too heavy because of my bait. I'd rather have a sinking boilie. I mean, I'm a big fan of keeping it over the pile, depending on what I'm doing. Like, I think you need to work out what's happening in your peg, what the type of venue is. If there's lots and lots and lots of fish to be caught, loads of bites, I think a wafter's often better. I mean, many occasions I think wafters are probably the best hook bait to use, but when used in the right way, that I'll talk about in a minute. When I'm being patient and I want to wait, or I'm having to wait, who knows what, 20 minutes for a bite, half hour for a bite, an hour for a bite, who knows, I'd rather be on my pile. I'd rather know that those big fish, particularly when they're coming in on a small pile of feed of a large or even a small medium method feeder, it's not a lot of bait. I think you only get one bite of the cherry. I think they come in, suck it all up. And if your bait isn't over your pile, I worry that potentially you miss out on that fish. I mean, of course, there's things that you can do with wafters and that to keep them on the pile. It just makes it easier for me. I mean, it's almost a lazy option in that I don't have to think about it too much. I've not got to check my hook baits too much to worry whether they're flying off. With a sinking one, I know that it's staying, because of the additional weight of the hook and the bait, it stays where I want it to do, which we'll show you in a tub in a minute. When it comes to wafters, however, I've definitely had my bottom kicked a little bit, and I need to think of them in a different way. I've been too stubborn and I've been disregarding them because of the faults, or because of it's not a fault, it's because of the way they behave. I mean, and me being a little bit stubborn, instead of thinking of ways to fix it, I've just disregarded them altogether. And that's definitely the wrong way to go. So Nick taught me that massively after spending the day with him, in that the importance of fishing wafters correctly, I mean, being maybe with a bigger hook or maybe doing other things to make sure the wafter it's anchored in it. Anchored's the best word, where I need it to be. Kept it in place so it's not allowed to waft all over the place. That's the last thing you want. You need it to work in the correct way. And there's several things that you can do, either by, say, increasing the size of your hook, obviously, is the easiest thing to anchor your wafter where you want it. Secondly, increasing the size of the bayonet. By using different gauges of bayonet, different thicknesses of bayonet, it adds more weight to it, which is a massive tip that I definitely owe a lot to thank Nick for telling me that one. But also playing about with your wafters by adding liquids and things like that to them. You know what I mean? It was actually Jake who actually showed me that, almost by accident, that by playing about with adding liquid flavours, which is definitely the one I've been playing about with, the flavours and the oils. Oils aren't the way to go. They're just too thick, too gloopy. They're not absorbed. But by using liquid flavours instead, that are a lot more watery, they're absorbed far more into the wafters. So it's something I've been playing with. Loads of my pots of wafters have been treated with little bits or different amounts of liquid flavour. And what it's created is wafters that are different levels of buoyancy, sort of thing. So I can literally pick my wafter out. I've got my 3 tubs in my bags, and I can pick my either dry wafters straight out the packet, which are really buoyant if I want to fish them on a great big hook. But if I want to use a smaller hook on the day, like sort of maybe a 14, a bit lighter gauge wire, then I can use wafters that have been treated with a lot more flavour, a lot more weight added to them, And in turn, I still maintain that lovely wafter properties, but I'm able to use slightly more refined gear possibly. But as well, I've got the properties of the wafter, so it's possibly the most perfect way of it working, which is what it's all going to be about today. I'm going to try and catch a couple of great big lovely fish for you while I'm using these lovely wafters that are going to sit where I want them to do when I'm getting bites quite quickly. I mean, I'm not waiting for bites too long on most occasions that I choose a wafter, but if I'm catching plenty of fish, bites within, say, 10 minutes, then definitely slowly I'm warming to using wafters a lot more, just because they're going easier, if anything. I mean, I don't think fish choose one over the other, of course they don't, but I think they just get inhaled, ingested, whatever, taken in easier by them fish, just because of the properties that they have themselves. So have a look at these in the tanks, just so I can explain a little bit more of exactly how they're working. Right, so my 2 wafters are ready, and first I'm going to put in straight out tub, as it is, a wafter just on a hook length, just so you can see. Let me drop that in nice so you can see it a little bit nicer. I'm going to flick it in so my big sausage fingers aren't in the way. I'm going to put that in. What am I best doing it that way? And you can see how slowly and nicely that one sinks. But it can waft about really easy. See it moving really, really easy with a little bit of disturbance. So great, but in that case, I probably need a bigger hook. So you can see that just moves a little bit too easy for my liking. It wafting all over the place. So very, very buoyant as they can possibly be, but still sinking. Of course, it's still a wafter, but there's a very good chance that that one's going to come off my pile when I've created my method, held it together. The next one, however, if I take him out, put him on there, this one is one that has been in my liquid, and it's probably been in my liquid for about, I'm going to say 2 weeks now. And you see that this one sinks, which is the best way for me to put it that way, a little bit faster, and you can just see it's got a little bit more weight to it. So both are the same in these cases. Both of them have got size 12, and I've not used a bayonet on these, not for any additional weight, just to show the wafter in its true form, sort of, without too much help. Both of these have just got size 12 hooks on in a band, and you can see this one doesn't waft anywhere near as much. Yeah, stays a lot still, as I'm not going to say a lot more weight to it, but there's a bit more bait to it, and of course that's going to hold onto its pile. You can see it is just sat nicely above my hook, so it's still working as a wafter. It'll still be inhaled really, really nicely, but it just works that little bit better when I want to use a small hook. I mean, and I always think that if you've got big water movement, fish moving it about a little bit, you need all the help you can get to keep your bait in place, and so that allows me to use one of these bigger wafters, but at the same time makes it, say, just better than they potentially are straight out of the tub, which is what I'm going to catch one on right now. So that is a lovely example of what I'm after. So I'm getting bites, I'm not getting them quick, but I'm getting them probably about 10 minutes at a time. It's my 3rd fish that I've had a sneaky go at trying to catch while we're doing this. And it's pretty much 10 minutes per bite, which is enough time for me to be confident that my pre-soaked wafter, what's going on with this? That was right over that bar then. My soaked wafter is still staying lovely over that pile. So I'm not getting any indications. So there's not fish in me swim, just the size of the fish in here. We're on Old Huff Specimen Lake. So because of that, they're all large. But perfect example of where you need a nice big hook, a wafter that stays where I want it, but still wafts. And for these fish, there's possibly no better hook length, because they have seen, definitely on here in particular, every single possible hook bait you can throw at them. These bad boys have seen it. Might have caught the resident 60-pound catfish here, Jake. Large one. Large specimen is not a catfish though. It's proper nice by having a big hook bait with a big hook. You just feel so secure when you've got a fish on. Oh, he's large. Well, he's not massive, he's just a proper one. We'll see, the Wafter, give me rod rest out way, is exactly where we want him to be. Very much should have put my thing on. You see him, Jakey? He's in the top lip, which is a bit strange, but he could not get any more perfect than that. That one has been nailed and pretty much is never, ever, 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 ever gonna come off. I would show him, lift him up and give you a pose, but being the world's worst fish holder, I don't think it's a good move. I'm gonna give you a tiny, tiny little pose just above. Look at him, beautiful carpies and the perfect sort of size, what I'm on about, for using big hooks, big hook baits like a Wafter on a method. And I definitely feel it gets job done. I mean, because of my baits presented in such a perfect way where I want it, I definitely feel that when fishing for fish like that, over your tight pile on a method, I honestly don't believe that they get away with it very often. I feel like when the fish come in, suck that pile up, take my Wafter, I'm going to catch one. It gives me the most confidence I could possibly have.